How's it going, everyone? 3D Painter back with a new video. This time we've got Baby Yoda, a.k.a. Grogu, a.k.a. the child. This one was a lot of fun. Commission job that I did for a dear family member, and here I'm just sparing you guys the pain of all the prep work that had to go through with gap filling and everything by speeding up the process and cutting to all the fun little bits. Using Fun Crecol UV resin to fill in a couple of gaps here. Doing a high speed action for you. Fortunately, it was a pretty small model, so there wasn't a lot of gap filling I had to do on it. For the most part, it printed out really well and easy. The solid parts that I printed, like the hands and stuff, probably should have printed not solid. Anyhow, starting off with Pro Rack. Well, I didn't like the chrome finish I put down, so I decided to go ahead and paint that coal black on top of the chrome. Actually, it was the Vallejo's metal color that I used originally, and I didn't like it. Didn't like the way it looked. It was just too shiny. So I went over that with the black coal, which is matte finish, and then used some Rinfang steel, as you see here, to do some dry brushing over the base here, which you're about to see. And I was much happier with the way that turned out, and I think the client will be as well. So we'll see how that goes. I believe he should be receiving the model in the mail in the next day or two if he hasn't gotten it already. So I'm excited to hear what he has to say about it. Anyhow, moving along, just finishing dry brushing here. I was using a number 2, I think, number 2 dry brush. I forget. Pretty good sized dry brush, and this is how it turned out. I definitely like the way it looks better than the chrome finish. Much nicer looking, a little more pleasing to the eye. And then I took some Tamiya panel liner to get into these little details with the cracks and crevices, as we like to say, and add some shadows and stuff to it. So you can see me doing that here. Good times. And next I just decided that it needed a little dark on the bottom to add some shadow to the effect. I was pretty happy with the way it turned out. Moving on, used the Auric Armor Gold by Citadel, which is a really nice gold metallic paint by them. It dry brushes nicely, and I just used I think in this particular brand of dry brush, this was a 0 or something like that. I forget. Anyways, it was a small dry brush, and that's how I did the lettering for it. The Child. This model was created by SW3D Studios, and I'm guessing when they called it The Child, they may have done it back when before he was actually introduced as his name being Grogu. I'm taking a guess, but I like The Child anyways. I would prefer seeing The Child on there than Grogu, so I think it would be cool. And that being said, that part of the base is complete, and it's time to go ahead and glue that bad boy on there. So I used the Thick Viscosity by Glue Masters. It's a great super glue, cyanoacrylate, and we'll call the base good at this point. And next up, we're going to be working on painting the Pram, which is the child's little, his little, I don't know, little baby carriage crib thingamajigger that floats around with Din Djarin as he cruises, the Mandalorian guy. And whoop, off to the next one. So we're gonna go with ivory. I thought ivory was a great color to paint it, and you'll see in a little bit here that Din Djarin, the Mandalorian, and Baby Yoda, Grogu, whatever you want to call them, they go on quite a few adventures, and this little Pram that was built to protect him gets pretty beat up. And fortunately, SW3D Studios thought about that when they modeled this, and they included a lot of the battle damage, as it were, in the model itself. So that kind of made it pretty easy for me to do some weathering on it and whatnot, which we'll see here in a little while. But yeah, really, really fun little model. I highly recommend checking it out if you're into 3D printing and you want to do a Baby Yoda for yourself. It's a rather small piece, so it's easy to get through and fun to paint, and not extreme. I wouldn't call it, if I was going to put it on a scale of 1 to 10 in the challenging aspects of painting a model, I'd put it at like a 4. It's small, it's easy, didn't take me very long to do, and I had a lot of fun doing it. It was nice. I spared you the pain of watching me mask up the model, getting ready to do the interior portion of the Pram, and I just mixed up like a red with some orange. I forget the paint that I used. I was going for kind of a brick red, which is, from all the pictures I was able to see, was pretty much the color on the interior of it. And so I just mixed up some paint until I got something satisfactory. Excuse me. I like the way it turned out, though. So I'm just using my Harder and Steenbeck Evolution CR Plus on that one. And masked off the upper portion of the interior of the Pram lid, and went ahead and painted that up. Turned out pretty nice. So you can see where I'm finishing that up here. And we'll, of course, be adding some detail to that here in a moment. Done. And back to the interior of the Pram using Xandri Dust. It's an air paint, actually, by Citadel, and I had to do a couple of coats with it because it does come out very thin, but it was the color I wanted to do the interior here for this blankie, or the padding, or whatever you want to call it that's in there. And I spared you the rest of the time it took to do that by shortening that up. So there we go. And then on with the Seraphim Sepia wash to get the to just bring out some detail in the blankie. Worked out pretty good. I was happy with the outcome on that. If you like what you're watching here, thanks for stopping by to check the video out. Please hit the like button, and please hit the subscribe button. Trying to grow this channel as much as I can, and really appreciate you guys stopping by to check it out. And feel free to watch some of my other videos and stuff too. And if you so desire, hit that bell notification, because I do a lot of live streams and stuff like that, so it's good way to know when I'm about to go live or when I drop a new video. You know, all the particulars that people on YouTube say to get people to like and subscribe to their stuff. So please like and subscribe. That's all I got. That's the best. So here you can see me just checking on the lid fit, seeing how I like it. And moving right along to some Nuln oil to get some details down on the inside of the Pram. This is where I'm starting to figure out how I want to do the weathering and just adding some detail and shade work to the interior here. The Nuln oil I think was a good choice. It worked out pretty well for this part of it. Happy with that. Now moving on to Vallejo's metal color. It's called Dark Aluminum, and very nice, easy to work with paint. And it's a fantastic metallic color for metal parts and gears and whatever you need to use it for. So that's what I'm using on this. I forgot to show the bottle. Excuse me, and I don't recall Vallejo's number, their code number for it. So anyways, just look up Vallejo metal color dark aluminum is what it's called. That being all set and satisfying, I went ahead and glued on the lid to the baby carriage, otherwise known as the Pram, and I mixed up enough of that orange color to give it some racing stripes, because I noticed those were the same color, so you can see me doing that here. And then there was a couple little detail markings and stuff that Quill, who was the builder of the Pram in the TV show, Quill gave it some racing stripes, which I thought was pretty cool. Or Mando did. I don't recall, actually. I'd have to go back and watch it. Leave a comment in the comment section if you remember whether Quill was the one who painted the racing stripes on there or Mando did it. I can't recall. These, I've looked at several different reference pictures, and the racing stripes were a little different here and there. And I felt that the markings that SW3D Studios had put on the model itself were perfect to put the markings down for the Pram. So that's the part that I painted. You know, you can do it any which way you like if you want to extend the stripe a little further. And then here I'm using that panel liner to add to just to add a little dimension to the Pram. I wanted to make it look dirty and beat up. That it, you know, this thing has been through some stuff, and so I felt the panel liner was working really well on the panels that were on the Pram. And the ivory color is it's a little porous, so it kind of soaked up the panel liner, and it spreads a little bit into the paint, and it gave it a nice, like, kind of grungy feel, you know, like there had been dirt and oil that had gotten into the cracks on the lid and stuff like that. And here I'm just taking a piece of a sea sponge to add some scratches and cracks and dents, just some battle wear. And I'm using, in this particular case, I was using the Vallejo metal color, and then I used a little bit of a dark gray to add some other chips and weathering, and even a little bit of black as well, using different sea sponges as I went along. You can take a piece of sea sponge and break off a piece, and you'll get different, you know, different chipping effects from every little piece of sponge, and that's how I did all that. So feel free to, experiment, try different things. And now I'm just adding a little bit of panel liner to these indentations, I guess, in the edge around the pram. Pretty satisfied with how that looked. By using different colors, gray, black, the metal color, you're able to get different depth to your scratches. Happy with that. Now on to Grogu himself. So I'm using Xandru dust again to get the initial color down on his robe. I left his sleeve separate on his right arm because it would have been really difficult to paint the gear shift ball or whatever it is that he's obsessed with in the show, that he always takes off, tries to steal it, and eventually Mando gives in and lets him play with it, kind of as a treat, when he does good. When he's a good boy. Excuse me. Just using my Evolution CR Plus to airbrush that on, and now we're going to brush in the Seraphim Sepia, airbrush in the shadows. Felt like that worked out pretty well as a shadow color for his robes and stuff, and it did. It worked out great. So, if you know of another color that you want to try or that you like, you could paint his robe purple for all I care. Do whatever you see fit. And of course, I'm painting from the underside because that's kind of how shadows work. You can see I'm going along here and doing that. A gap on his left arm filled out nicely. Checking continuity and adding a little more shadow by pressing the arm back on real quick, making sure it looks good. And moving right along here, it's time to do a little dry brushing using the layer paint by Citadel called Screaming Skull. Because the ends of his sleeves and the top of his robe, I guess, where the hood part is a lighter color, so I just used a really small dry brush to get those done. It turned out nice. I was happy with the way it looked. I also kept that right arm separate because it would help facilitate painting his hand. After I painted the silver ball, I was able to paint his hand much easier than if I would have had it all glued together first. So I do recommend keeping at least that arm separate until you're done painting it, and then go ahead and attach it after the fact. Like I said, it's a small model, so it's pretty easy to work with. It goes pretty quick. I think I probably spent a total of between 8 and 10 hours painting this little guy. Not Grogu himself, but the entire model. The total time it took for me to paint it was about 8 to 10 hours, somewhere around there. Now I'm going to use this snakebite leather to do the stitching around his robes. There you go. Using a very tiny paintbrush that's generally used for painting miniatures or really fine details. To get all the little stitches in. You can see me doing that there. It goes on really thin, so I did have to go over most of the stitches a couple of times, which I'm doing. And now we're moving on to the hand. I painted that in ivory first. And then there's the test run on the skin tone. There's 3 different types of green, which are right here. That's a Roy's Far green, cheap airbrush paint. And then I used the Pro Acryl, just standard green on the lighter bits. And then I used the Goss Blaster green for the highlights. And I just used the dry brush to get the highlights on. And then you can see how I kind of mixed that there on my wet palette. And moving right along to the fingernails, I used the Wraith Bone and then the Seraphim Sepia to get the shadows in on the fingernails. I had already painted it by the time I filmed it and realized, like, oh yeah, I forgot to show the paints that I used. And then of course there's the metallic color, 77.783 or 763. That's the metallic color that I was using earlier. And then panel liner accent for a little steering shifter. And now she's ready to get the arm glued together. Put a little too much on there, so I used a Q-tip to spread it out. And then got that set on. The glue sets pretty quickly, so I didn't have to hold on to them for too long. And then went ahead and sealed everything up with that Krylon flat clear is what it was. Now moving on to the portrait. Starting off with the Roy Zafar green, which is a darker green. Didn't feel the need to really do too much. I kept it simple. It's such a small model, and it worked out great. Doesn't translate as well on camera as it does in person, but I actually used a couple of reference pictures and a Funko bobblehead for the color reference on the skin, and it came out great. It looked exactly like the bobblehead. And moving on to the more highlight part, I'm using that green to lighten up the skin a little bit. Again, using my Evolution CR Plus by Harder and Steenbeck. Thank you, Harder and Steenbeck, for making such amazing products. And back to the Gauze Blaster green for the highlights on his face here. And this particular, I had actually switched out my needle to the 0.15 millimeter nozzle and needle to do this portion of the face because I needed something that was very fine detail. And now we're going to use this Emperor's Children pink to get his little ears. It's a perfect little pink to get his ears with. That turned out good. And give him a little blush on his cheeks. There he is. And then just using some Bealtan green to get into the wrinkles on his head and whatnot. My wife made something really yummy. Holy cow. She just came in here and fed me while I'm doing this voiceover, so I apologize. You'll have to deal with my chewing for a second because that was freaking yummy. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna have to leave the recipe in the description. You guys can try that out. It's like a spicy Chinese peanut salad. or Thai peanut salad maybe. That's good. And doing a little dry brushing on the highlights again. Bring that out. Now onto the eyeballs. The funnest part of doing a model. So he's got big black eyes, and I thought the Corvus Black looked great with it. So I'm just doing the, no, there's not really any sclera in his eyes. It's just straight up black. Getting those all covered up nicely, very carefully, using a very tiny brush and a bit of a stabbing motion to get into the corners. You see that there? It's definitely bringing some life by getting it. Now for the scleric highlights, I just used plain white airbrush paint to add a couple of the little scleric highlights on there, and then used my wife's old blow dryer that I stole from her. And here I'm just adding the gloss. The gloss that I like to use is it's made by Citadel, and it's called Ard Coat. They have some pretty wacky names for their paints, but yeah, this stuff, it's a great gloss coat. Yeah, that looks good. And now on to his little butterfly. It's supposed to attach to his finger, but I wanted to make the butterfly look like it was flying, and what I did was I straightened out a paper clip, a very small paper clip, and used a tiny bit of clear resin, and then I held the paper clip up against the bottom of the butterfly there and developed the resin with my pen light, and it worked out great getting the butterfly to stick to it. And then I drilled a little tiny hole in the Pram. So now I'm just dry brushing some highlights on here with lighter purples and working my way up. But yeah, I drilled a little tiny hole in the Pram and set it out, so it makes it look like the butterfly is kind of flying away from him, as you saw at the beginning of this video. Worked out great. But you can glue it to his fingertip too if you like. I just felt that it was a little unstable, and it looked better on the paper clip. Yeah, so the butterfly turned out nice, and now that the portrait's done, we're gonna glue his little head on there, pop that butterfly into the little tiny hole I drilled, and call it good. Thank you guys for watching. Enjoy the glamour shots. Toodles.